Wait, go back and
Oh, I
did
got
you?
it. It's
Yeah.
recording.
Okay.
Recording in progress. All right. So, good morning. I actually really enjoyed our last, I know it was like early morning, we're doing early morning, but I liked the little like Zoom call, getting to like all chat together. Um, all right, Tech Trailblazers is here. Our administrators and teachers. Oh, you are. Administrators and teachers ready. Oh, are administrators and teachers ready to implement emerging technology to students? Okay. What
Really.
are some emerging technologies and how will they assist students?
Mm,
Eh,
mm. I put like technology such as like AI assistants,
hmm
Grammarly and ChatGPT. Google Workspace provides a lot of tools, and they're constantly developing and taking feedback from their users. So I thought that was a good one. Canva, Adobe Express, and I don't know if you guys have seen. Have y'all experienced Mirror Talk yet?
Mm-mm.
What's that?
Oh my
I think
goodness,
I've
y'all.
heard of it when I was at TCA, but I can't recall off the top of my head.
It's life changing. I encourage everybody to have a look at it. Like, so I discovered it this past week as I've been helping like on the guiding coalition at my school. And um, we were trying to, help teachers reflect and things. And that mirror talk it's way better than anything that we've used before. Like we used to use Flipgrid or
hmm
Microsoft Flip, and now all that's been integrated into Microsoft Teams now for education. But Mirror Talk is something completely. It starts with that foundation, but then it takes it to the nth level, and it's like it's a reflective tool that helps students or like whoever to reflect more deeply, and it's amazing. Like if you're ever struggling to come up with like good reflective questions for your class, or I mean, I tried it on something simple
Always.
like I'm having trouble coming up with what I want to make for dinner this week, and
Always.
here's my struggle, and y'all, it's awesome. I think that's like
Mirror
one
talk.
of the really good ones.
Is that what
Mirror
you said?
talk.
Mirror talk.
Mhm.
Okay.
So
And
yeah,
is it an
AI.
AI tool?
It is. It takes like recordings, like does the videos and the voice and all that. But it analyzes your responses, and then it's like a partner that helps you. It asks the right questions that helps for deeper reflection. And it
Cool.
basically is just giving you back questions so that you can explore and expand and think about what you're learning, or you know even what you're worried about. So it's been pretty awesome. And it tells you how your mind is working, what level, what level you're on as far as like mindset and everything. It's awesome.
That's cool. I've been using a lot of okay, I've told y'all this before, right? Like my district is very like AI scary. Um,
Mhm.
I get to use it though because I'm the campus technology chair. Um, so I've been really passionate about like exploring how AI can help with teacher workflow. However, one thing that I've found is not just that it helps like make my life easier, right? But it helps me generate things that are more rigorous for my students.
Hmm.
So while they're not necessarily directly interacting with that AI tool, what it's generating for them to use is a lot more rigorous. So like for me especially, um, since I'm an ELA teacher, I have the ECRs. They're terrible. Which Sarah's extended constructed response, and they get graded on it on their state assessment. Um, and we found that like all of the ECRs that we were coming, because it's so limited, right? We've only had it for what, going on 3 years now. Um, all of the prompts that we were coming up with were just not as rigorous as what Star was putting out there. And
Hmm.
so one day, all of a sudden, like I had an epiphany. Actually, I was doing one of my 45-minute sessions for my practicum, And I was like, what if we dropped this passage into like Magic School and had
Hmm.
it create text dependent questions that are open ended, and like we fed it, like extending constructed response as per star, TEA, blah, blah, blah. And when I tell you that it puts out some good,
Yeah, it does.
rigorous prompts, so we've been using that all year long now. And I've gone back into our curriculum where we had these like ECRs that we wrote and I've been like
Yeah.
building them in there. And so while like the students aren't directly interacting with that AI tool, it's it's helping them because they're getting the rigor that they're going to see. Um, but like we're even talked about Google Workspace. Like my kids, we do use Google Suite in our district, and my kids use a lot of the different tools there. I teach inclusion, so my kids use that speech to text for my kids that just typing isn't going to happen, kind of thing. And it's all very, very helpful. So there's so much technology. It's really just figuring out what actually is going to help them. What do I have access to, right? Like, what does my district pay for, or what's free, or
Hmm.
um, what follows privacy guidelines? Because that's a really, a lot of teachers, I think, don't think about that, but you know, a lot of things don't have privacy guidelines. So you got to be careful when you're looking at exploring with those. But that's my,
We've had a, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
We've had speaking, we've had a lot of discussions with teachers about the agreements, the agreements with all of them. So our department created like a whole long list of like what programs we have DPAs for and which ones do we still need, and I've just cautioned teachers, just to be super careful, like when I'm in their plannings and things like that. Um, but yeah, I totally agree. Like, even if the teachers are using it, it's assisting the students in some way. Maybe they're getting more differentiation than they would have without that tool helping the teachers. So we're very open to AI. Our superintendent is pushing for it. So our department is doing a lot of talking with the coaches and a lot of partnering with our teaching and learning department to make sure, I think our next step is next over the summer with curriculum writing, trying to put in some AI um, pieces into the lesson plans to support teachers. So yeah, there's that's what our district is doing. And I know we have teachers that are concerned about like, what if it's doing all the thinking for the kids? Is it really critical thinking? And that's where we're like, well, that's where we have to train the teachers on how to use it appropriately, the best way to make sure the kids are still doing the critical thinking and doing the work.
Yeah, using it as a tool to facilitate the critical thinking or to drive it even
Yes.
further and not to supplement. I
That
like
seems
that you
Yes.
mentioned like putting things into the curriculum, because that's one thing, like it kind of honestly touches on the second bullet point, like challenges to implementation. In our district, we've been implementing Lumio because we have G2 boards. Does anybody have any experience with those? They're terrible. Um, they are they're not made by Google, but the interface in them is Google. But then Google stopped actually contracting with the company because the company was so bad. And so now you can't even get like the computer itself fixed from Google. So over the summer, we had to buy like tiny little computer boxes to stick on the back of everybody's G2 boards because we're just not financially in a place to replace. We know we're going to replace, we know we're going to go with smart TVs. Like we already know that stuff, but we just don't have the funding there yet. So we're like, okay, we've got to make these things last until we can figure it out. We put these stinking little boxes on the back, which means that like the teachers that were all e-sharing from their computer to that, it's not working anymore. And
Mm.
we have a lot of teachers that are still like document camera behind the desk, old school, which has a place, I think, but also get up, please, and be present with your students. And so we've been using Lumio, which is web-based. And if you've seen any, like that's what I've done all my projects on, because that's what I've been pushing at our school, because that's what we're implementing. But one thing that we've talked about is like, we got to go back into the curriculum and put those Lumio lessons there that have already been created, because then the next year, if those teachers are having to learn, like, it's inevitable, we're going to have new teachers, like they're going to have to learn this new system, they're going to have to create the new lessons. Like, we don't need to do that, we already have those lessons, link them in there. So we're having to like, hey, you have all these things, please go back and put them into your curriculum. And so that's something like conversations we've already said when we start curriculum writing in the summer, we're going to have to like, hey, those places, those pockets where you don't have that, but you did it, it has to go in there, or those new teachers that you're going to have in your department are not going to use this new tool. So, yeah.
In my district, actually, we just had one of our last Institute days of the year, and that's one of the things that they talked about was, you know, AI. And I'm in an elementary building, so it's not of and such of a concern, but definitely within the middle schools that we have is, they were talking about how teachers need to start looking at what students are producing and truly looking at their work. Not like they don't, but just to kind of see where the variances are to see if they have been using an AI, because we always say, oh, our kids are so techie, but when we really look at it, like they know how to game, they know how to, move around the block, they know how to do things that they're probably not supposed to do, rather than actually learn and use the systems that we're asking them to. So it was interesting to have that conversation and be like, yes, my district is also wanting AI to be part of the instruction and be part of their learning process, but it's also considering that SOPA feature, like looking at what are the regulations and the stipulations within every single program, because we have to meet those being an educational facility. I remember Dr. Bellard last section of classes, he introduced me to the Notebook LM, where it takes, right, whatever PDF you plug in and it turns it into what is more of like a conversation podcast kind of a thing. And I tried it with my kids, and I'm in 5th grade, and we have a new ELA curriculum this year. And the student reader is like this big for 1 unit. And so I literally took the entire PDF, it's like 300 pages. I plugged it into Notebook LM, and I got a 35-minute podcast that literally goes over the entire book, but it's done in podcast form, and the kids got a kick out of it. So I feel like there's a way when you have kids who can't physically read the text, but they still need to understand the major concepts. Like that's a great way to plug right in for technology as well.
Absolutely. It's amazing. I keep forgetting about Notebook LM. I hear all about it, and I keep forgetting about you, like just like inputting a book, like you said, and just having it like basically conversate about it for me.
You just upload like a PDF of a passage, and it just makes a little like conversational.
Yeah, it makes a podcast based on whatever you upload. So any
Right.
PDF you plug in, it takes a little longer to like actually circulate and create itself. But then like literally the text that I imported was like 200 or 300 pages. It was all of the Renaissance for, student reader of our curriculum. And then it spit out a podcast that was like 35 minutes, and it got to the gist. It hit all the major points, but it was spoken between two, who knows, random AI people that discuss everything that was in that 300-page text, but in 35 minutes. And it was enough for my sped kids who can't read to understand it without me having to go back and be like, oh, this is what, a prince is, or this is what, it means by heroism. It hits those main pieces.
So, question, does it have to be like a PDF or text, or could you upload like a video? I'm thinking like like a video of like a reading of like a chapter from like YouTube, or do you know?
It says it has to be a document. I sent the website in the chat
Okay.
because I've learned so many things this morning, so I've just been looking stuff up.
Right.
I'm like thinking ahead. Right, we take our STAR test in a week and a half for ELA, and then
Right.
after that, I support math for 2 weeks until they take theirs. And then I plan on doing a novel study with Holes because they just love Holes. It's such a good book. And I'm like, ooh, could I put like a chapter or two of Holes in there and that are like a little bit more difficult, like that, you know, you need that background knowledge that not all the kids are gonna have, and see if it'll. I'm gonna figure it out and I'm gonna report back.
I want to know.
Well, there's got to be a way to get the text
Well, I
and
think if you can
upload it
download
as one of the formats that they accept. That would be very interesting. Now you have my mind swirling.
I'm gonna buy an ebook, I think, is what I'm gonna do, and see if I can maybe do it like that. We'll see.
I'm like,
Whatever
I'm sure.
book we have for one of, I can't remember if it's, I think it's this class. I bought the ebook on Kindle. So now I'm like, I wonder if I can upload that into and listen to podcasts.
So Lisa's gonna start with the ebook trial because she's already got that. Okay, so what criteria should we use to evaluate the effectiveness? I feel like we've already touched on that, yes. Do we want to
So
go into
remember,
that
he
maybe a
said we
little
don't have to
deeper?
answer each question as long as
Right.
we have conversation that meets
Yeah.
some of them.
I like this one though. How can we integrate digital tools to encourage peer-to-peer learning and collaborative problem solving? So for me, I guess just to kind of kickstart y'all, actually what I'm doing my publication about, also my action research is it's a little bit different, but kind of the same. I feel like it's really important, and I think kind of gets lost sometimes when people use digital tools. They sometimes end up just like the kids are now just on their own using the digital tools, and then like the collaborative discussion, like all those like learning styles that the kids need kind of gets lost sometimes. And so for me, I've spent the last couple of years like, okay, like I love, obviously, right, I love technology and I teach the kids it all the time, but I also love, like, I'm a huge proponent of using lead forward instructional strategies. The instructional strategies playlist is pinned to my, see, you can actually see it here. Instructional lead forward, right? Okay. So it's literally pinned there. I use it all the time. And so I was like, I gotta figure out how to like mesh these things together. And so I do a lot of like, my kids are on Lumio and we have it going and we have like the interactive piece there, but then I implement a collaborative, like whether it's a kinesthetic activity where they're just like walking around the room to get their movement out, or like I've got music playing to just kind of brain break them for a minute, or like there's a collaborative piece involved, and I like mesh those things together. So while they're not necessarily doing that peer-to-peer collaborative because of the technology, it's a like combination of those two best teaching practices together, so that it's not like it's either this or this. No, like you can do both. I'm almost thinking now, like my brain's like, they're gonna make their own podcast together about the novel whenever we're done, because I think that'd just be so fun. I hope they think
In
it'll be
Magic,
fun.
I've
They-
done that in the past. I was teaching fourth grade at the time, and I had students create a podcast. Oh, if I could only remember what they were doing about the American Revolution. So they learned all about it. We did our social studies unit. And then at the end, instead of having them write a paper or write something, because writing was still a struggle, and especially with students who, physically, we asked them to do a podcast, and it was probably the best thing that they did all year long.
I know I'm really excited about podcasts.
Yeah, our English, well, I work really close with one of the senior English teachers. She's also like the avid teacher this year and last year, and we started trying to do podcasting with her senior English kids about maybe 4 years ago, and we tried out different platforms, but the criteria we were looking for was something that was going to really be student-centered and easy for them to use. And then we also allowed them the choice to, if they didn't prefer that, we let them like show us some things that they use that they found easy, or that they were able to demonstrate what they were learning. And what we used it for was for book club, because trying to let these kids choose, they're choosing all these different books and things, um, and then, getting together and talking about it. That's what we were using the podcast for. And so the very first thing that we were doing before we got into the book and everything was having them just test out different things. So we weren't sure at the time. But it needed to be something that was easy to use, that the kids were, comfortable using. And like I said, we gave them a choice, and then everything had to be very purposeful, because with it being so, it almost felt like really broad and really abstract at first. But then, as we were talking, we were trying to come up with, okay, so what is it that we really want these kids to be able to do? And how are we going to help them to understand that you need to choose the tool that is going to do what you want it to do best? So that was really important. And then making sure that it was really interactive. And that's where the podcasts were very helpful. And then just the discussion that, when you step back and you let these kids just do it, you see that sometimes as educators, we just box kids in. We don't give them the chance to show exactly like what they can do. Like we think about what we think they can do, but until you actually like let them have the reins, that just blew our minds, especially. But and then we needed to make sure that it would, whatever they were doing, needed to be they needed to be able to reflect and then get feedback from one another. So podcasts we found were really helpful in that class. So
What are some of the platforms that they ended up saying were like easy to use for student use, Lori?
what they ended up doing was some of them went just as simple as creating they would get on Teams, because we had access to Teams, and they would just go ahead and record. They would just record their voices, and they had prepared like a list of questions. The kids talked about what they were going to be looking for, and Miss Colson, that's my English teacher friend. We had like a very generalized set of questions that we gave them to like get started. And they would kind of start with that, but then they ended up talking about other components as well. So they would hit things that she was asking for, but then their conversations got a whole lot deeper because they came up with their own questions that they wanted to talk about. And everybody's questions were different from group to group. All the kids that were choosing, this one particular book, they all got together. And then it created a sense of accountability as well, because as they were reading, some people were getting really far into the book, and then some people were slower readers. So they hadn't gotten very, far in the book, but they were all able to participate. And but they went as simple as just recording a simple video, and they have Chromebooks. So they don't have any like software or anything like that they can download on there, because it's all web-based, but they just recorded like a video. And then I saw groups that were just using their phones they would set it up and they record the video. But then what was making it a podcast was that they were able to strip off just the audio, and then we looked at different platforms where they could upload, their podcast. And they went in, they listened to other podcasts, to popular podcasts. And then they made a list of like all the components that made it like engaging and made the listener really want to tune in. And so based off of that, they were able to build their podcast. So they had a little bit of processing that they had to do with it too. And I thought that was really cool. You know, getting to see them do that, collaborate and do that. We got much better projects than if, you know, the teacher was just asking questions and facilitating a discussion in class, whole group.
You made me think of something when this is like a great idea. Okay, so like we have Google Meets, and I'm thinking about like getting the kids, like I was sitting here like wheels turning while you're talking, like we could be doing like discussions across our grade level so the kids can still be in class. They're not having to in the pod, or and then they can also practice their skills of being on like meet on these kind of programs, right? Because you know they're going to have to do that even in adulthood in their jobs. Like what a great way to like collaborate across the grade level, but no one actually has to move, and we can record it, and they can, you know, post it, and all the kids can kind of watch each other's too and give feedback. Like, oh my gosh,
And
this
I'm gonna
is
tell
like
you,
the best.
I'm gonna tell you something else that really made it and made them want to do it. We bought those little tiny microphones, like they're really tiny with them sticks. They
Yes.
really wanted to do it. Then when they saw that, they were like, "Ooh, that's kind of cute." And then next thing you know, you see them in the cafeteria and they're walking around interviewing each other, asking like questions. And that our student council actually made a TikTok where they just walk around and engage with the whole student body, and it's hilarious, y'all.
They love those mics. We have them we do kindness TV announcements, is what we call it, morning announcements on one campus. And then we do like video for social media on my other campus. And so I got those they suddenly turn into like little like reporters and
I do.
influencers with those. Like, hey, I'm like, what? Watching like little fifth graders, third graders, it's hilarious.
I know. I
Love it.
love it.
All right, y'all got to send me
I
a
love
link for the little mics.
Right.
Oh
I
yeah.
love how because it seems like most of you guys teach elementary school. So they're more engaged in what you guys are wanting to teach them and for them to experience so that they will have a deeper understanding of what's going on before they go to middle school. In middle school, nothing happens.
Your
Nothing
hormones
happens.
happen.
So they don't want to talk to each other, and it's very difficult for them to talk to each other. If they do talk to each other, it's not about anything dealing with school whatsoever, which has also been an issue. Um, and I'm just like, I taught elementary for 5 years before I went into middle school. And I was like, I hope it's like that when I get to middle school, and then it just has not been. Um, so for my school at the end of this school year after STAR, we are going to be having the students create a large school-wide group project to encourage the collaboration of them. And it's supposed to be cross-curricular, and I'm supposed to be heading up on the math side. And I'm just like, okay, I know what we're doing on the financial literacy portion of it, but how do we bring it together with all of your English classes? History will be easy because we can create some type of market, which makes sense. And it can be like an old style, like trade market, but
I would have them do some research for English. Have them do some like research and creative writing. That
okay.
way it still is more like fun and collaborative since it is that end of year. But then you could maybe even embed like the podcast to where like whatever creative writing or prompt you give them about this like market or whatever,
Yeah.
they're discussing it and talking about like what happened in it. Maybe almost like you have them do like a news report of like something that happened in the market that they went to that was like the social studies aspect.
Hmm.
And then have them like creative write about it and then create a podcast where they're talking like they are the news reporters, right? And that would satisfy your English requirements because it's going to require a little bit of research, and then obviously their writing, and then talking about their writing, and like thinking through that process.
Then
You could have them do like finish the story. So like everybody has their own part into
Mhm.
the story, and then you could take the text and turn it into a PDF and submit that as a podcast.
Which text though? Because I
Text that they're
also we're doing
creating.
a full cross curricular that includes science.
You can do a couple of things. You can have them like write for the reading aspect.
Mhm.
You can also, I mean, really and true, like, so one thing to know, like, since you don't teach reading, all of our informational text as reading teachers like on STAR is supposed to come from their previously exposed or that year's science or social studies text. So like
Interesting.
for me as fifth grade, they cannot give them an informational passage about like ancient Greece,
Gotcha.
because fifth graders would never have been exposed to that yet.
Yeah.
They also can't give them an informational passage about like genus and species because they haven't been exposed to that yet either.
Okay.
So I mean, that's one thing to keep in mind is you can kind of like if you're giving them any kind of informational text for the science aspect, that is going to touch on the reading, and then maybe that's where you could do a collaborative, like where they're, maybe podcasting about that to like, yeah, anything they read or write about is gonna influence their, is gonna bring in reading.
Yeah. I got you. Because we're trying to make it as low tech as possible because right after STAR, I am to take up all of the MacBooks again.
Okay, I
Um,
have a tangent. Sorry about this. The whistling. I found a small PDF of holes and I uploaded it into Notebook LM.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah, welcome back.
You know how this works? We take some really interesting source material and we break it all down for you.
Exactly. We're going to be looking at Holes today.
Holes by Louis Siccar.
It's a great book.
It's a classic, and we've got some excerpts, and we're going to be focusing on Stanley Yelnats.
Yeah, and specifically his experiences at Camp Green Lake.
Yeah, this is kind of like a fast track into the beginning of the book and all the craziness that happens.
The early stuff.
So yeah, get ready because this is going to be a good one.
Let's jump in.
Okay, so right off the bat, Stanley, he ends up at Camp Green Lake, right?
Right.
And you find out pretty quickly Camp Green Lake is not a lake
No,
at all.
it's the opposite of a lake.
It is the opposite. It's like this desert wasteland in Texas.
Yeah, it's like 95 degrees out there.
No shade.
No shade.
And there's rattlesnakes and scorpions.
Yeah, and the yellow spotted lizard.
Oh yeah. Don't forget about the yellow spotted lizard. That's a bad one.
Yeah. If it bites you, you're done. You're in trouble. Big.
They even talk like podcasters.
So- Yeah, and it goes on like literally like the 100 or so pages of a PDF that I was able to find for free. It came out with a 12.5-minute podcast.
oh, wow.
And that's Notebook LM, which is why like when Dr. Bellard showed that to us, I was like, okay, I should try that. And then I kind of like love it since then. And so I try to put any PDF I can find into there and just see what they produce. And it's just, I find like it's very interesting because it's also, right, it's not our voices as teachers talking. It's someone else. It's someone that the students have no knowledge of and don't have any history with. And I feel like they listen a little bit better because it's some other voice that they don't hear all the time. It's pretty-
They haven't turned into that womp 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 noise that the kids in middle school especially
Mhm.
associate with teachers.
Yes.
and like the way that they do it, it's it's those pieces of like where they pause or like how they like come back to something, and it's very interactive even though it's not in front of you and there's no visual.
I like it. That's cool.
Yeah, I got an idea from you doing that. I wonder if I could take like a lab, like a lab that they've done where sometimes I'll have my kids type in like their responses to a lab, from the I guess like the instructional guide that they're using, where they're collecting their data and everything. I wonder if you could do that and then have it create a podcast about the lab experience.
I mean, I would assume you just take what they type and save it as a PDF instead of a regular doc, and then you can upload it. So
Put it in
that
there.
would be really cool to see what comes from it.
I know, right?
Cool.
I'm gonna try that with my bio kids.
I think you should put like all their different, like Johnny said this and this, and then have them like, that'd be hilarious.
That would be so
Please
funny.
do that and report back.
I'm going to try that.
They're all going to be like on the edge of their seat waiting to hear like what the podcaster said about what they wrote, right?
Absolutely. I might have a hard time keeping them focused after that.
Oh, yeah, definitely do it at the end of class. Send them on their way to the next teacher after that. Sorry. All right. Well, I think we've covered pretty much almost everything. We talked about ethical concerns earlier, and so yeah. I have a soccer tournament to go to. So.
Oh, I miss those.
My
Never
son
thought
was
of
like, my
those,
socks
but I-
feel weird on my toes. Like, oh my God, can you stop?
What?
That's what he
I
always
forgot.
says. His socks feel weird on his toes. That's what he's whining about. right
Okay,
now.
because you know that little ball at the very end of where it stitches over. My son's 5. He doesn't have soccer, and we still are on this. Like, he doesn't
Yeah.
like piece on his toes. Everything feels funny.
Yeah, he doesn't normally wear socks. He only wears them for soccer and baseball because he has to wear them. But
And the soccer sock seam is like so much thicker. My kids
Yeah.
used to complain about it too all the time. And I'm like washing them and trying to get them a little bit better, a little bit less annoying. And I was just like, let's just suck it up.
Gotta
Yeah.
wear them.
Just, I was like, I did everything I could. Oh,
Yeah, I always ended up finding holes where I guess it was like the toe part mainly that bothered them. Yeah, so every time I would like go to do laundry afterwards, I would find where one of them tried to cut that little inseam where they reinforce. They cut it out, so then the toe is like open, and I'm like, really, really, brand new socks, really?
Ashley, if you want to stop recording, maybe he won't want to listen to our conversation about socks.